Imagine this. You have a brilliant idea for a learning community. Even better, you've got the infrastructure, you've got people already interested, and you know exactly how you're going to evaluate engagement such that you can constantly level up the experience for your members. And then you realize, wait a minute, people probably need to be onboarded to this community because while we might have the vision for how great the community can be, new members probably need to get onboarded to that same vision. So now the challenge becomes, how do we know if somebody has been successfully onboarded to our community and the tools and resources inside of it? What's the easiest way to do that? Well, that's what this video is all about. In this video, I have something new that I'm trying out, and I hope you will enjoy it. And it is a guide to viewing this micro-learning video such that you can test your ideas and compare them to the ideas and the approach we used with Alex and Peter at Barometer XP. So here's how it's gonna work. I'll ask you a couple of important questions to either write down in your notebook. I have a notebook always right next to me, or feel free to use the comment section down below to share your ideas and perspective, and hopefully we can get an asynchronous conversation going around the answers to some of these questions. Are you ready to get started? The first chapter of this short video is all about metrics. So here's the question that I'd love for you to consider before you watch the next chapter, and that is, what do you believe are 3 metrics or indicators that would help us know if a participant has been successfully onboarded to the tools that they were introduced to in an onboarding training? What might that look like? Take a few minutes, feel free to jot it down in a notebook, or use the comment section down below to share your ideas and perspectives, and hopefully we can get an asynchronous conversation going about this. Once you've got 3 things, go ahead and tune in to this next chapter.
Sort of shift in mindset in terms of how to make sure that this kind of membership is set up for success is to make sure that we're onboarding people and giving them a sort of entry into the different tools that we're putting in front of them. And we see that kind of through a training lens. So like most tools out there, if you're kind of just given a tool and have to figure it out yourself, you might find your way around it over time. But it's pretty often that, if I've ever been given a new tool, that I'll just kind of I'll use it when it's absolutely critical, and that's it, right? And if I don't know when absolutely critical is, it's very likely that I won't use it. And so, I think our big kind of shift in mindset is, all right, we need to make sure that there's a training to onboard people into this product and community so that they can build that kind of sense of trust from day one, right? It's not just a happenstance, oh, I ran into this other person who's also a member and now we're best friends, right? That's probably pretty rare when you're thinking about 10 to 20 people in a world of billions. So, thinking about how can we create a space, and in current thinking, it's probably 2 half-day training modules that give people a sense of how to use play, how to bring play into work effectively, and some of the sort of pillars that we've built a lot of this work on. And so kind of giving them those tools is something that we're thinking about, and we're preparing for our first training session kind of in the next month or so.
What does it mean to be oriented successfully?
It's an interesting question. And Alex, I might kind of throw this over to you because you've done a couple of courses and things like this, and curious kind of what you've seen as you've gone through them, what's worked, what hasn't.
Yeah, I think that the difference between sort of orientation and just training is there's so much training where people leave and nothing changes. They maybe have some knowledge that hopefully they retain, but they don't know how to apply it. And so in the orientation, what we really want is people know exactly how to use the different tools. And we have several different ones. But, so first is our assessment. Do they understand the framework behind the assessment enough that they want to use it with their clients or with the teams that they're helping? So using the assessment. When when we're showing somebody a game and sort of going behind the scenes of how to facilitate it, the best is when people are like, "Oh wow, I see how I could use this for X purpose." So they're seeing the experience and seeing the value of it, but then taking that leap to say, "How could I apply this?" You're seeing the applicability in situations that they're familiar with. So I think that's another piece of orientation where they feel comfortable enough with the content and the approach that they're then thinking about putting their own spin on it and applying it. I think those are two of the big pieces. I think also people who suggest other games or say, oh, it'd be really helpful to have a game that does this type of thing. Or, oh, you know what, I did an activity once a couple of years ago that I think might work for this. Are you interested in adding this to your catalog? So people that then want to offer their own contribution to the content that we have in the community to build it, to see the value for other people. I think that's a huge indicator, is that obviously we want people to feel like it benefits them, but for them to also be excited about resources and tools and a community that will benefit the field at large.
Mm-hmm. So, did the ideas that you came up with align, or were they similar to some of the ideas that we talked about in our short clip? Well, when we facilitated this conversation in my community of practice live, there were a ton of other ideas that came up that I also want to share with you. That is, how much time are people spending using the tool? Did they even go back to use the tool any time after they completed the onboarding training? Or are they having follow-up conversations about the tool or the resources inside of the community? Or maybe you use an assessment. You want to test knowledge or aptitude around using a skill before and after an onboarding program. Or maybe, and this is one that's really interesting, you ask participants who are coming to your onboarding program, what are the goals that they want to get out of being a member of the community? Or what is it that they really want to know about to help them be successful inside of the community? And then you could ask them after the fact, did we meet the goals? That's a really interesting one. So before we tune into chapter 2, here are the questions that I would like you to ponder before you view the video. How long will participants remember the tools and how to use them before they're going to need some sort of reinforcements? The second question, what are some of the ways that we might want to reinforce our onboarding program, especially in the sense of a learning community? Because we want people to stay in the community, to engage in the community at a high level. And if the goal of the community is to use a certain set of tools, well, we probably have to reinforce and encourage people to continue using those tools after they've been onboarded. So, what are 3 ways that we could reinforce or support members of the community in continuing to use those tools long after the onboarding program is over? So write down in your notebook or share it in the comment section down below the answer to those 2 questions before you tune in to our last chapter. And I would say, Peter, too, that as you think about the role that Barometer is playing and the supports that you're offering, your orientation realistically is only going to have so much of an impact. It's just an orientation. It's not going to be like the thing that sets people up for success and supports them along the way. It's just going to give them an orientation to the tools that are part of the community. So I would say that realistically, the evaluation is like no more than a month later. Like a day and a half training, no more than a month later, will that still be relevant? And so you've added a few different layers of like, what do we want to evaluate? And I think realistically, you really only want to evaluate just the first step beyond orientation. And then there's probably going to be a support service that Barometer comes up with to keep people using the tools and supporting them along the way. You'll evaluate that totally differently and at a higher level with a little more complexity. So my suggestion is, and this is what happens all the time, is like we get so excited and we want to measure impact, but realistically, the impact of your onboarding training, no more than a month. That's it. Its shelf life is over beyond that. And to support people is a whole other offering that you'll evaluate completely differently. So I'm help rein it in, Peter. This is all great, but like, right? We have to be doing what's realistic. And so I would say, what's that one thing, maybe two in each one of these tool categories that you want to see people doing within that month, maybe 2 weeks, maybe it's a week, whatever's realistic, but no more than a month later should you be evaluating the impact of this training.
Yeah, and we're thinking about sort of evergreen resources that they can use, right, to get us to step 2, 3, 4. So not necessarily saying all of those things come out of the training, but yes, I totally agree. I think using Slack and creating a channel that says, here are some micro lessons, or here are some resources you can use, or here are some opportunities that you might be able to jump into, or demos that we are hosting, right? They're more touch points so that it is a lot more recent. And then we're trying to build up kind of like a workbook for the training itself, right? So they've got a resource that they've taken notes in, and so they can kind of go back and refer to like, all right, I see some of the models, the tools, right? But I also have some notes that I made to maybe help me understand this or to customize it the way I want to. And like, hopefully that helps, right? Having something that they can take away.
Yeah, and it sounds like you don't have like a Mighty Networks, a Circle, a Kajabi community that you're hosting everything in. You're using Slack as your way of connecting and communicating, but truly your website sounds like the place that people are going to, for now, the place that they're going to go to find and engage in your tools, and of course where you'll get the analytics of where are people doing this on their own, and because I'll tell you that when people build communities, you'd be surprised how troubling it is just getting people to register into the community. And so when we think about doing an orientation, like as much as you can get people practicing using these tools inside that day and a half session, and then seeing are they continuing it beyond, it's just crazy. The things like someone can be so highly engaged and connected and aligned with your mission, and yet they don't ever come back to use the tools, and you're like, what's going on? And so getting those insights and seeing what are the tools people are coming back to and what are the ones they're not after that month of orientation. And then my suggestion, and I know it takes time, but gosh, the data is so good, is that for the people who have used all the tools, because they're your success, this is your success case method, like, you know, what was exciting for them, and why are they engaging at such a high level? And then the people that aren't engaged beyond orientation, like they didn't take their initiative to do really either anything at all, or they did a couple of things, have conversations with them. You know, what got in the way? How are you thinking? And then that information is so valuable to shape what comes next.
Yeah.
As we wrap up this micro-learning video, I want to leave you with one clear call to action. Okay, of course, it's subscribe to my channel. The other call to action is use the Brinkerhoff success case method after any onboarding program, especially after you know if people have used or not used the tools, the software, the resources, whatever it is you are onboarding them to. Oftentimes, we have two groups of people after an onboarding program. We have the group that's using the tools or resources at a high level, and then we have the people who aren't. Oftentimes, they may never come back to the community, or they may never come back to those tools or resources. So imagine you have these two groups. Brinkerhoff's method suggests that whether you do focus groups, surveys, interviews, I loved in my last job doing drive-bys. I was able to go talk to people face-to-face in the office and just have conversations about, hey, I saw that you use these tools at a high level. Tell me more. Or, hey, I noticed that you haven't come back to our community, or you haven't used these tools very much. Tell me more, and get some insights that can help you understand why the people use them at a high level and why people didn't use them at all. Those insights can help you continue to design an effective onboarding program. And in Alex and Peter's case, retain members of the community and hopefully even get them to refer other members to join the community because it was that valuable. I hope you enjoyed these insights. And of course, if you want a place to go to get live support, to practice your skills with an amazing group of peers, I host weekly live sessions where we take the same case study, but we pick it apart live and we have great conversations. And of course, you can always share your own troubles, places where you're stuck, such that the community can help you, because after all, that's what communities are for. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you in the next video.